beef broth. How do you make great beef broth every time? Get all of the great minerals from beef bones into your body and benefit from the rich gelatin in these bones. Well, I'm Amanda Rose in the Sequoia National Forest. I'm just explaining the process that we use. Now, first of all, what bones do you buy? Buy any beef bones you can find, first of all. But keep in mind, if it's a marrow bone that looks like this, you can see the marrow inside of it. This is going to add a richer flavor to your broth, so I do look for marrow bones, particularly if they're packaged separately, or sometimes you will find a package that's just called soup bones and you can see that it has a lot of marrow bones. That's one to buy. Beef feet. Beef feet, it's a certain bone. Now you'll sometimes see one that looks a little bit like a foot, but it's the bone right above the hoof. And this bone has a lot of gelatin in it. It's fantastic. I look for that too. Now I typically can find soup bones in ethnic grocery stores. Here in California, there's a discount store that regularly carries soup bones of various kinds. But also what you can do is find one of those small town butcher shops and that you know maybe makes its own sausage and is the place where local ranchers might process their family steer or something, and they often sell bones for pets. Well, you're going to find a great price there. So you check into some of those options, and marrow bones for flavor, beef feet for gelatin, but any bones at all are great. And what you're going to want to do to maximize the flavor in your bones is roast them. I typically preheat my oven to 350 to 400 degrees, put the bones in a container like this, and cover them with foil. I'll tell you, some of these bones are fattier than others, and if there's a lot of fat, it's going to just spitter and spatter all over your oven, and so keep it inside and keep everything clean by putting some foil on it. And actually I like to take that roasting step because not only is the flavor better in the broth, but then some of that fat ends up in the pan, not in my soup, so I don't have to worry about ladling off that fat when I use it for soup. Next step, after these are roasted, simply put them in your crock pot, and in this 5-quart crock, I usually use about 2 pounds of bones, and I might add onion. If it's onion is a great thing to add to broth. The flavor is great. Sometimes the skin can be a little bit bitter, so I tend to take that off. And carrot is great. Celery is great as well. And just fill up your crock. Now, put your bones in, put your vegetables in, and then cover them with water. And I want to point out one thing from experience, and that is that if you overload your crock pot, as it starts to simmer and bubble a little bit, it can come up over the lip, over this lid, and possibly run down inside of your crock pot. Don't overfill your crock pot. Just keep it, keep a little bit of headroom in there so you don't have a mess. And after about 24 hours, I simply pour that broth off into my soup container. So I'm making soup the next day. I let this go for 24 hours. I plan to make soup, and I just pour it through a strainer right into the soup pot, and it is already hot. The soup is now halfway cooked. It's easy. And I keep the bones, I keep the vegetables in the crock. I add more water, and I do it again. And let me add that when I do put water in, I also put in this size crock pot about 2 tablespoons of vinegar, and the vinegar will help draw the minerals out of the bones. I like to use a culinary vinegar like an apple cider vinegar, but any vinegar will do. So with each batch of beef broth that I make from the same bones, I will add more water and I will add a little bit of vinegar again. And let me say, from beef feet in particular, we once got 12 batches of gelatin broth from the same soup bones. So we have a great process, and it's really simple, and you can have mineral rich soups and sauces every single day in your kitchen in a very economical fashion.